The night presses against the walls like an unseen hand, thick and cold as the distant howls of wolves pierce the stillness. The flickering light of a single candle in the far corner of the room casts its dim glow on the stone floor. Shadows stretch long and haunting, curling and twisting like specters in the corners of the hall. The air is heavy with the scent of tallow, the smoke curling upward, spiraling towards the low ceiling, where centuries of dust linger untouched. A solitary figure moves quietly, almost reverently, through the room, the sound of their footsteps barely audible against the soft crackle of the fire. This is a moment frozen in time, a single breath in the endless expanse of history. A time when the world still knew the night as sacred, not just a pause between the toils of the day, but a realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead grew thin. It was a time before the rise of the electric age, before the relentless brightness of artificial light would rewrite the human experience. Outside, the moon hangs like a pale, silent witness to the world below. But here, in this cold, stone-walled hall, the rhythm of the night is something different. The silence holds weight. It is not an empty quiet, but a presence, heavy and alive, that surrounds every corner of this ancient space. The monks, wrapped in the coarse fabric of their habits, move through the motions of their midnight prayers. Their voices rise in whispers, their words lost to the stone, as they bow their heads before the sacred. But this is no ordinary night. This is a night defined by ritual. The rhythm of sleep not measured by the ticking of clocks or the passage of hours, but by the deep, almost sacred connection to the dark. There is no sense of rushing here, no sense of time pushing forward relentlessly. Instead, the night is divided into two distinct sleeps. First, deep and heavy, followed by a brief waking, and then the second sleep, when the body slips back into a deeper rest. The ancient rhythm of the night is simple but profound. It speaks to a time when human lives were governed not by the mechanical ticking of a clock, but by the slow turning of the earth, the rising and falling of the moon, the quiet pulse of the natural world. In the silence between these two sleeps, there is peace. The night is not the enemy, but a refuge. It is a time for reflection, a time when the soul can wander, when the body can rest without the interference of an artificial world. But the world is changing. The candlelight flickers once more, casting a faint shadow on the stone. The monk at the front of the room pauses, his hands still raised in prayer. He senses it. The first stirrings of something new. There is a sound, a hum, faint at first, but growing louder. It is the sound of a future being born, one that will soon turn the very nature of sleep on its head. In the distant reaches of the world, the age of electricity is dawning. Soon, this small, sacred rhythm, so entwined with nature, will be shattered by the artificial light that promises progress, but brings with it the loss of something irreplaceable. The first flicker of artificial light will change everything. The warm glow of the hearth, the moonlight that dances softly across the land, the deep shadows of the night, they will all fade. A world where sleep was sacred, where time was measured by the pulse of the earth and the quiet of the night, will slip away. The nights will no longer be ruled by darkness, but by the unyielding light of invention. And with that light, the world will lose something precious, something forgotten by those who will never know the beauty of this ancient peace. The monks finish their prayers, their voices trailing off into the quiet, and the hall settles once more into its deep, comforting silence. For now, the rhythm of the night remains unbroken, but the shadows of change creep ever closer. And when the light finally comes, bright, unrelenting, it will be a dawn that does not merely mark the passing of the night. It will be the death of it. The night will no longer be a time of sacred rest, a time when the soul could drift free of the weight of the day. No, the night will become a thing of duty, measured by hours and dictated by the unyielding clock. The ancient sleep patterns, divided into two peaceful slumbers, interrupted by a brief and sacred waking, will be lost to time. The world, so connected to the quiet of the night, will be forever transformed. In the dim light of the abbey, as the last candle sputters and dies, there is a sense of finality. The ancient rhythm of sleep, so deeply entwined with the natural world, has begun to fade. The monks, though unaware of it now, are the last to feel its pull. The coming age will change them and the world in ways they could never imagine. The light is coming, and with it, the end of the night. And so we ask ourselves, what will we lose in the light? What will we sacrifice when the night is no longer ours to keep? As the last of the night draws to a close, the monks retreat to their cells, their bodies heavy with the weariness of the day, the peace of the sacred night slipping away from them like sand through their fingers. The night, once their refuge, is no longer theirs. It is a time slipping away, a time that belongs to no one anymore. Soon, there will be no more waiting for the second sleep, no more stillness in the air. And when that time comes, how will the world sleep? The candle flickers once more before it dies, and the room is left in darkness, a darkness that is soon to be swallowed by the bright, unyielding light of the future. The air is thick with the weight of 1,000 prayers. Outside, the winds howl like forgotten spirits, their cries swallowed by the oppressive darkness that blankets the world. Inside the small stone chapel, the flickering light of 100 candles casts long shadows on the ancient stone walls. The faint smell of beeswax mingles with the musk of old wood, and the low murmur of whispered prayers fills the air like a delicate song. But it is not the prayers themselves that hold the weight of this night. It is the quiet ritual of sleep, a sleep divided, revered, and sacred, separated by a brief, sacred waking that marks the crossing between the worlds. The night is an ancient force. Before the glow of lamps and the hum of electric light, the night was a kingdom of its own, with its own rhythms and rules. It was not simply the absence of daylight. It was a realm where the soul wandered, where the body could rest, but still feel the presence of something greater. The monks in this chapel have known it for years. The silence that comes between the first sleep and the second, the sacred pause where one might sense the stirrings of the divine, or perhaps even hear the whispers of lost souls. And yet, the clock of history ticks on, indifferent to the sacred silence that once ruled the hours of the night. This rhythm, the rhythm of the medieval world, is slipping away, crushed beneath the weight of time and progress. Soon, the flickering candles will give way to the harsh glow of artificial light, and the sacred practice of sleep will become nothing more than a memory. The medieval night will be lost, swallowed by the relentless advance of human invention. It was not always this way. In the days before the rise of the artificial glow, there was a sacred rhythm to the night. The world knew sleep as a ritual, divided into two parts. The first sleep, deep and comforting, was followed by a brief awakening in the dead of the night, where the body lay still, but the soul stirred. It was in these moments that the monks, the villagers, the peasants, they all felt the weight of something more profound than themselves. The darkness was not an enemy, but a place of refuge. It was the quiet between the hours, where the mind could wander and the spirit could find peace. But then came the first whisper of change. It was faint at first, a whisper on the wind, carried by the new technologies of the world. Gas lamps flickered to life, and then, more hauntingly, electric lights spread through the towns and villages, seeping into every corner of the earth like an invading force. The night, once defined by darkness, began to change. The candle flames that had flickered and danced for centuries were replaced by harsh, unblinking lights that cut through the shadows, robbing the night of its power, of its mystery. The monks continue their prayers, their hands raised in quiet supplication, their voices rising in a low, rhythmic chant. They do not know yet that their sacred practice, their connection to the night, will soon be erased. The night will no longer be a time for quiet reflection, a time for the soul to wander between the worlds. No, the light will come, and with it the death of this sacred ritual. The night will no longer be a refuge, but a place to be conquered, controlled, and manipulated. The first flicker of light is seen in the distance. It is subtle at first, a faint glow on the horizon, but it grows brighter with every passing year. Soon, the light will become unyielding, forcing its way into the very heart of the night. The ancient rhythm of sleep, once defined by the quiet division of the first and second sleeps, will be replaced by the unrelenting pulse of modernity. The night will no longer hold the same power it once did, and in its place, a world governed by clocks, by artificial light, and by the constant demand for wakefulness will rise. But the monks, for now, remain unaware. Their night stretches on, as it always has. The shadows still stretch long across the chapel floor, and the soft glow of the candles still flickers in the dimness. The world they inhabit is still bound to the rhythm of the natural world. But even as they pray, even as they move through the rituals of their faith, the world outside is changing. As the monks finish their prayers, the chapel falls into silence once more. The light from the candles slowly dies, and the darkness swells to fill the room. It is in this quiet that we understand the full weight of what is slipping away, the peaceful, sacred silence of the night. The world that knew two sleeps, that knew rest in its truest, most sacred form, is vanishing. The light is coming, and with it, the night will never be the same again. The candlelight flickers once more, casting a soft, wavering shadow. For a brief moment, it feels as though the night holds its breath, as if the world itself is suspended between two eras. One foot in the darkness of the past, the other in the glaring light of the future. The monks, now lying in their beds, surrender to the stillness. The world outside is no longer theirs. The light is coming, and the night, sacred and untouched for so long, will soon be no more. What will the world become once the silence is broken? What will be left of the sacred rituals of sleep, of the quiet moments when the soul could wander free? As the first light of dawn begins to creep over the horizon, we are left to wonder. How much of ourselves, how much of our very essence will be lost in the bright, unblinking light of the new world? The shadows fade, and the day begins. The first sleep is over. The second sleep, once sacred, now slips quietly away, replaced by the relentless tick of the clock, by the hum of machines. And in the darkness, only silence remains. The cold wind howls outside the crumbling walls of the fortress, carrying with it the sense of wet earth and pine. The world beyond the high stone ramparts is an unforgiving place, filled with shadows and untold dangers. Inside, the flickering light of a single hearth struggles against the dark, its feeble glow barely cutting through the dense fog of night. It's in these hours, between dusk and dawn, that the ancient rhythm of the world begins to weave its magic. There is a silence here, a tension that clings to the very air, a tension born of centuries of sacred tradition. For this is the time when the rituals of sleep were not simply biological acts, but sacred practices, deep and profound. The people of this age, bound to the earth by the weight of the seasons and the cycles of the moon, knew something that has since been lost to us, the art of two sleeps. First, a deep, heavy slumber, followed by a brief awakening in the dark of night, a moment when the soul could stir and the mind could wander. It was in that brief hour, suspended between dreams and reality, that they believed the veil between the living and the dead grew thin. The stillness of the world itself seemed to breathe, the darkness not a place of fear but of reflection, where one could hear the faint whispers of history, of ancestors long gone. But that time is slipping away, forgotten like a half-remembered dream. In the flickering candlelight of this old fortress, a lone figure stirs beneath the weight of worn blankets. The crackle of the fire is the only sound, the only comfort. The woman awakens, her eyes heavy with the weight of the world, and yet lighter with the peace that comes in the midst of night. She stretches, her fingers brushing the cool stone of the wall, the chill of the air lingering on her skin. Outside, the world is still, but within the fortress, time moves differently. This is not simply a time for rest. This is sacred. The air shifts. There is a presence here, though unseen. The room, cold and empty in its silence, feels alive, as if the stones themselves remember the ancient rhythms, the rituals long forgotten by those outside. In this place, the boundaries of the ordinary blur. The people who once lived here were bound to the land, and their sleep was a part of it. They believed the night was a place where both the living and the dead walked freely, where the soul could travel far beyond the confines of the body. For them, there was no rush to wake, no need to claw at the edges of dawn. The night was long and sacred. But now, there are no more sacred hours, no more whispered moments between the first and second sleep. The invention of clocks, of gas lamps, and eventually electric light will strip the world of these intimate, fleeting hours. The shift is coming. It is inevitable, and it is already here. Outside, the wind begins to pick up again, the first light of dawn barely hinting at the horizon. But inside the fortress, there is no hurry. The woman lies back down, her body folding into the warmth of her bed. Her eyes flutter closed, and the world slips away, the faintest murmur of the wind, the only sound, the faintest rustle of leaves outside. The room is dark again. save for the shadows cast by the fire. She falls back into sleep, this time deeper than before, her body now unburdened by the weight of wakefulness. But even as her breathing slows, even as the warmth of the blankets pulls her deeper into her dreams, the world is changing. It is not just the coming of the dawn, but the encroachment of a new world that will never again know the sacredness of two sleeps. In the great cities, men and women rise with the ticking of the clock. The hours are now defined by schedules, by machines, by the light of industry. The boundaries of the night, once so clearly defined, are now blurred by the artificial glow of gaslights, then electric bulbs. Time will no longer bend to the moon and the stars. It will be governed by the pulse of the clock, by the incessant march of progress. In the quiet chambers of the fortress, the woman stirs again, her eyes flickering open in the silence. Her body, still heavy with sleep, feels the weight of the world pressing down on her, but she does not yet know what is being lost. The rhythm of sleep that once defined the very core of human existence is slipping away. The night, once a refuge, is becoming a casualty of progress. There will be no more waking in the dark, no more sacred pauses in the rhythm of the night. The light is creeping, slowly but surely, into every corner of the world. The once eternal and silent hours of rest are becoming a thing of the past. The woman, like so many others before her, has no way of knowing that her waking in the night, her brief journey beyond the veil of sleep, will soon become a myth. The rituals of the night, once so intimately tied to the human soul, will be swallowed by the bright, unblinking light of modernity. The fire dies down to embers, and the first pale light of dawn slips through the cracks in the window. The room, once cloaked in darkness, begins to stir with the subtle movements of the world outside. The woman, now fully awake, pulls herself from her bed, her body stiff from the cold, but her mind still half tangled in the threads of the night. The world outside calls to her, but for now, she remains suspended in the quiet of this sacred space. As the last remnants of the night slip away, she stands, her hand resting on the cool stone wall. The fortress is silent, still, as if holding its breath. Outside, the new world is already awake, and the night, once so sacred, is slipping into memory. The first light of the sun touches the horizon, painting the sky in hues of soft gold and deep red. The world that once knew the quiet ritual of sleep is now a world that has lost its way. As the woman steps outside into the pale light of dawn, the castle behind her fades into the shadows. The sound of her footsteps, the only mark left in the fading darkness. She does not know it yet, but the world she has known is already gone. The rhythm of sleep, so sacred, so entwined with the heartbeat of the earth, is vanishing. The light is coming, and with it, the final death of the ancient night. And so we are left to wonder, what happens when the sacred rhythms of the night are lost? What happens when sleep, once a gateway to the soul, becomes nothing more than a fleeting mechanical pause between the hours of labor? The fire fades, and the day begins. The wind stirs uneasily through the dense, towering trees, their branches creaking with the weight of ancient secrets. The night is thick, a dark veil hanging heavy over the world, muffling all sounds except the distant howls of wolves echoing across the plains. Beneath this vast sky, the castle stands, its silhouette dark against the horizon, like a sentinel guarding the fading hours of an ancient, forgotten rhythm. Inside, a single candle flickers weakly on the stone table, its light trembling in the growing cold. Shadows stretch long, wrapping around the walls like forgotten spirits, their forms shifting with every gust of wind. The silence is deep, unnervingly so. It is the silence of an era drawing its final breath. The room is empty, but the weight of those who once walked its halls lingers. There was a time when those who inhabited this place and the land surrounding it knew the night as something sacred. Sleep was not simply a necessity. It was a ritual, a division of the night that allowed the soul to wander and the body to rest, free from the demands of the waking world. The practice was simple but profound. The night would unfold in two sleeps, each separated by a quiet awakening in the midst of darkness. It was a time when dreams were believed to be a bridge between worlds, and the hours spent in sleep were a sacred communion with the divine. But the night that once held such meaning is no longer what it once was. In the stillness of the castle, the woman stirs beneath her blanket, the coarse wool against her skin, the chill of the stone floor seeping through the thin mattress. Her breath is slow and steady, her body heavy with the weight of a long day's work. Yet, even in sleep, she remains tethered to the night, as though the darkness itself cradles her in its arms. And for a moment, she is part of something larger, something ancient, a rhythm of the world that few remember. The division between the first sleep and the second sleep is a quiet ritual, one that speaks of an understanding with the world itself. It is a time of reflection, of being between worlds. The soft, faint sounds of the night whisper through the room, the rustling of trees outside, the distant crackle of fire from the hearth, and in the stillness, something sacred stirs. But it is fleeting. As the hours pass, the quiet moment begins to fade, and with it, the ancient sleep cycle slips into the shadows of memory. The quiet waking between sleeps, once a moment of peace and connection with the divine, now begins to vanish. The night, once a sanctuary, is overtaken by the cold, mechanical march of progress. The light is coming. In the heart of the world, the first stirrings of the electric age are felt. It begins in the cities, where gas lamps sputter to life, casting their unsteady light on the cobbled streets. Then comes the electric bulb, a cold, unblinking eye that casts its harsh light on the world. There is no softness to it, no warmth. The shadows, once thick and comforting, are slowly chased away, replaced by the sterile, relentless glare of progress. The world once governed by the rhythms of day and night is now at the mercy of clocks and machines. Time no longer follows the natural pulse of the earth, but is instead sliced into neat, regimented hours. The woman awakens. She blinks in the darkness, her eyes heavy with the remnants of sleep, but the stillness that once defined the night has shifted. She rises, her body creaking as she moves, the cold stone of the floor pressing against her bare feet. The night feels different now, more urgent, less alive. The silence is no longer a friend, but a shadow. The weight of the new world is beginning to settle over the land, like a shroud, slowly suffocating the rhythm of the old. The first light of dawn breaks through the window, weak and pale, as if reluctant to push aside the darkness. The woman stands by the window, her eyes tracing the outlines of the world beyond the fortress walls. The land, once bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, is now illuminated by the harshness of artificial light. The once sacred night is now being torn apart, piece by piece, by the ceaseless march of progress. The world she knew is no more. The sacred hours of sleep, divided into two distinct phases, first sleep, second sleep, will soon become nothing more than a legend. No longer will the night be a time of quiet reflection, a time when the soul could wander free. It will be swallowed by the unyielding glow of industry, the steady tick of the clock, and the relentless drive of the modern world. The woman pulls her shawl tighter around her shoulders, the warmth of the fire barely reaching her in the cold morning air. She steps away from the window, her eyes lingering on the landscape one last time, as if trying to hold on to something that is slipping away. Outside, the world continues to wake. The machines hum to life, the workers stir in the streets, and the light continues to creep, pushing the darkness further and further into the past. The world has changed, and with it, the ancient rhythms of life will be lost forever. The rituals of sleep, so carefully divided and sacred to those who came before, will fade into history, forgotten by those who will never know their true meaning. As the woman walks through the halls of the castle, the stones beneath her feet feel cold, unyielding. The ancient walls, once filled with the life of those who lived in harmony with the land, now stand silent. The night has been stolen from them, and in the loss of the night, something precious is gone. The quiet moments when the soul could pause and reflect, when the world outside seemed to hold its breath, are fading. The quiet spaces between sleeps, where the divine could be felt in the stillness, will soon be no more. The light is here. The ancient rhythms of the night are slipping away into the pages of history, where they will remain, unspoken, forever. And as the woman steps outside into the harsh morning light, she knows that the world she once knew is no more. The night will never be the same again. The question lingers in the air, though unanswered. What happens to a world when it forgets the silence, when it abandons the rhythms that once connected its people to the earth, to the heavens? What happens when the night is no longer sacred, when sleep is no longer a time for communion, but simply a pause before the dawn? The fire flickers in the hearth, and the light continues to creep across the land. and with it, the death of the ancient world. The night had been perfect, as it always was, quiet and vast. The air, cool with the lingering edge of winter, held the deep scent of earth and pine. It whispered in the trees, like an old friend, a confidant who had known the world long before the rise of cities or the noise of industry. In the distance, the mountain peaks stood like silent guardians, their dark silhouettes sharp against the sky, etched in the silver of the full moon. The world, bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, seemed to hold its breath, suspended in time. Inside the fortress, everything was still. The stone walls, heavy with the weight of centuries, held the warmth of the hearth in their cool embrace. The crackle of the fire was the only sound that filled the air. Outside, the stars glittered above like cold, distant eyes, and the world seemed to sleep as it had for millennia. Yet the peace, the stillness that had defined the night was slowly being undone, bit by bit, like the gradual fading of a dream. It began as a whisper, a flicker at the edges of this ancient world. At first, it was imperceptible, a murmur in the streets of distant cities, a strange flicker in the shadows of the night. Then, like a slow tide rising, it crept in, insistent and relentless until it could no longer be ignored. Electricity. The candlelight that once bathed every corner of the castle, soft and intimate, was replaced by the harsh light of gas lamps and then the cold, unyielding glow of electric bulbs. The shadows, once the keepers of secrets, were pushed aside, leaving only sterile, unblinking light in their wake. The ritual of the night, once divided into two sacred sleeps, was fading, vanishing into the harsh, unnatural light of a new world. The night was no longer a time of rest, a time when the soul could slip between worlds. It had become a time to be conquered, controlled, and measured by the clock. In this quiet fortress, the woman stirs. Her breath is shallow in the soft, dark warmth of her bed. The fire crackles in the corner, its glow flickering across the walls, casting long, trembling shadows. The world beyond the castle walls is still, its rhythm still bound to the natural world. But the change is here. She does not know it yet, but this ancient rhythm, this ancient night that once held the silence between two sleeps, is dying. She rises slowly, with the weight of centuries pressing down on her bones. Her feet touch the cold stone floor, and she walks to the window, her breath fogging up the glass. The world outside is still dark, still bathed in the soft glow of the moon. But even now, she can feel it. The creeping change, the unnatural light that is coming. Electricity, the great force that would change everything. The night was once a place of refuge, a time when the body could rest, when the mind could wander, when the soul could float free. But with the rise of artificial light, all that has shifted. The delicate balance between wakefulness and sleep, the sacred break between the first and second sleep, has been shattered. There is no longer time for quiet reflection between the hours of rest. No longer a moment when the soul could be free, untethered from the demands of the waking world. The world has become a place ruled by the clock, by the relentless advance of technology. As she gazes out the window, she can see the faintest hint of light on the horizon. The first fingers of dawn are stretching across the sky, pale and cold. The ancient peace of the night, the quiet rhythm of the earth, is slipping away with the passing hours. Soon, there will be no more waiting for the second sleep. No more sacred hours in the dark. The light is taking over, slowly but surely. The fire in the hearth crackles, its warmth fading as the night gives way to morning. The woman turns away from the window, her mind heavy with the weight of the inevitable. The world she once knew, where time was governed by the rhythms of the earth, where the night was a sanctuary, is slipping into the past. The electric age is coming, and with it, the end of an era. She walks back to her bed, the softness of the blankets pulling her into a deep, exhausted sleep. The world outside has already begun to stir. The machines, the clocks, the relentless hum of progress, all are coming. The sacred ritual of the night is dying, and with it, something precious is lost. The quiet that once defined sleep, the sacred space between dreams, is being erased. Outside, the first light of dawn breaks through the darkness. The stars, once so close, so intimate, are fading into the light. The night that once belonged to the earth, to the people who lived by its rhythms, is no more. The change has arrived, and there is no turning back. But in the depths of the woman's sleep, there is still a whisper of the old world, a fleeting sense of the night that once was. For a moment, she is free. She is drifting, untethered, lost in the space between worlds where time holds no meaning. She is a part of the ancient rhythm, a part of the world that is disappearing. And then the light comes. The fire in the hearth goes cold. The room is filled with the pale, sterile glow of the morning sun. The world is waking, and with it the rhythm of the night, the sacred balance of sleep is slipping into the past. The sound of footsteps outside, the clatter of life beginning again, breaks the silence. The woman awakes, but something has changed. The peace of the night, the quiet refuge of sleep, is gone. In its place, there is only the relentless hum of the modern world. The woman rises, her feet touching the cold floor once more, her heart heavy with the knowledge that the night she once knew is fading into the past. The first light of dawn casts its long shadows over the land. The change is here, and with it, the death of the sacred night. The night presses close around the fortress, the cold air seeping through the cracks in the walls like an unseen threat. A distant rumble of thunder shatters the stillness, followed by the soft murmur of rain tapping against the stone. A gentle reminder that the natural world is always in motion, always unpredictable. The flickering light of a single candle casts long, trembling shadows across the chamber, where the heavy scent of tallow mingles with the dampness of the stone. The room feels alive with history, each shadow a witness to countless nights like this, stretching far back in time. The darkness outside is profound, a thick cloak that wraps the earth in its embrace, shutting out the stars and the moon. Within the castle, however, the night has its own rhythm. It is not simply the absence of light, but a sacred divided space, a time for the body to rest and for the soul to wander. In the stillness, there is a deep peace. The ancient custom of two sleeps, a practice passed down through generations, governs the night. The first sleep, heavy and deep, is followed by a quiet awakening, where the soul lingers between the waking world and the world of dreams. Then the second sleep comes, a return to the realm of slumber, where time seems to stretch and bend. It is in these fleeting hours between the first and second sleep that the world seems to pause. The fortress, once filled with the sounds of soldiers and courtiers, is now silent, save for the faint creak of the floorboards beneath the weight of the guards' footsteps. The candle's light flickers low, casting a warm, fragile glow that seems to hold back the cold, unyielding darkness of the night. This, too, is a moment frozen in time, a moment of peace before the encroaching tide of change. But the ancient rhythms that govern this world are fragile. The warm, intimate glow of the fire, the peaceful darkness of the night, and the ritualistic sleep patterns of the people of this age are already beginning to fade. Outside, the world is changing. There is a distant hum in the air, a whisper that speaks of progress, of a future where the night is no longer a sanctuary but a battlefield. The electric light, though still a distant dream, is growing closer. The cities are stirring, their streets filled with the first experiments in artificial light. The gas lamps flicker to life, and with them, the shadowed peace of the night begins to retreat, inch by inch. What was once a sacred rhythm, a time for reflection and quiet reverence, will soon be shattered by the unrelenting light of progress. The hour of first sleep, followed by the sacred stillness between sleeps, will vanish, replaced by the harsh, cold glow of artificial light that will keep the world awake, always. In the fortress, the woman stirs. She awakens in the middle of the night, her body heavy with sleep, but her mind still drifting between the worlds. The fire crackles in the hearth, and she pulls the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Outside, the rain is still falling, soft and steady, and the night seems to stretch on forever. She breathes deeply, the scent of the wet earth seeping in through the window, mingling with the smoke of the fire. For a moment, she is suspended in time. She is part of the ancient rhythm, part of the world that once knew the sacredness of sleep. She is not bound by the ticking of a clock or the demands of the modern world. Her rest is unhurried, like the seasons, like the moon's slow journey across the sky. The night is a time to pause, to reflect, to let the soul wander, and she is free within it. The quiet of the night seems to stretch around her, a living, breathing thing that holds her gently in its embrace. But the world outside is not the world of her ancestors. The silence, so sacred and profound, is already being replaced by the hum of machines, the tick of clocks, and the relentless march of progress. The candlelight that flickers in her chamber now is a faint whisper in the face of what is to come. The night, once a time of sacred separation from the day, is fading into the past. She shifts in her bed, and for a moment, she hears the soft whisper of the rain against the stone. It is the last echo of the old world. She lies still, her body heavy with sleep, but her mind beginning to stir. The light is coming, and with it the death of the old rhythms. The ancient rhythm of two sleeps will soon be a thing of myth, a memory that will be forgotten by those who come after her. The electric dawn is inevitable, and with it the world will be forever changed. She rises, her feet touching the cool stone floor. The fire has burned low, casting only faint shadows on the walls. The stillness of the night is almost unbearable in its silence, and the weight of change hangs heavy in the air. She walks to the window, looking out at the world beyond the castle walls. The rain has stopped, but the darkness still holds sway over the land. The moon is hidden behind a blanket of clouds, and the stars are nowhere to be seen. The silence of the night is profound, but it is fleeting. Soon, the first flickers of light will break through the darkness, and with it, the sacred night will be lost. The second sleep will become a thing of memory, a time when the world knew rest, a time when the soul could wander freely. The ancient rhythm will be swallowed by the bright, unblinking light of the new world. She returns to her bed, the fire now nothing more than embers in the hearth. The night, still dark, seems to close in around her. She drifts back to sleep, but the quiet peace of the old world is already slipping away. The last vestiges of the night, the sacred pause between the sleeps, are fading, swallowed by the march of progress, by the encroaching light. As she lies there, her breath slow and steady, the world outside shifts. The castle, the night, the ancient rhythms, they are all slipping into the past. The electric dawn is inevitable, and with it, the death of something sacred. The night will no longer belong to the earth. The rhythm of sleep, divided into two peaceful sleeps, will be lost. And in the stillness, as the first light of day begins to creep across the land, she wonders, what will be left when the night is no longer sacred? What will the world become when the second sleep is no more, when the quiet rhythms of rest are replaced by the relentless tick of the clock? The fire dies to embers, the world outside stirs, the darkness is fading, and with it, the night is lost. The darkness is overwhelming, a heavy shroud that presses against the stone walls, making the air feel thick, almost suffocating. It wraps itself around the castle, swallowing everything in its path. The wind howls, rattling the ancient shutters, as if the night itself were alive, restless, yearning for something. Inside, the faint glow of a dying hearth casts shadows that stretch long and deep, like fingers reaching into forgotten corners. The fire crackles softly, the scent of wood and ash mixing with the cool, earthy smell of damp stone. It is a sound that has echoed through these halls for centuries, marking the passing of countless nights. The room is quiet now, save for the soft rustling of a cloak, a figure moving through the dimness. The woman stands near the window, her face faintly illuminated by the firelight, her eyes distant, lost in the thick blackness that fills the world outside. There is a pause, an agonizing stillness, as if the very night were holding its breath. The moon is hidden behind thick clouds, and the stars seem to have disappeared altogether, leaving only the silence of the world. This is the night as it has always been, profound, sacred, and filled with secrets. But the woman knows something has changed. She feels it in the very air around her, the subtle shift that has crept into the world over the years. It is the change brought by the relentless march of progress, by the coming dawn of the electric age. The light, cold and harsh, is creeping in, slowly but surely, erasing the sacred rhythm of sleep that once defined the night. The quiet, divided rest that once belonged to the darkness, the first sleep, followed by a brief sacred waking, then the second sleep, is fading, becoming a relic of the past. It is a shift that goes unnoticed by many, but in this room, in this fortress, the woman feels it acutely. The rhythm of the world is changing. The ancient practice of sleep, once governed by the rise and fall of the moon, is being swallowed by the unyielding pulse of artificial light. The gentle division of the night into two distinct sleeps is being replaced by the harsh, unblinking light of the future. The quiet hours that once existed between sleep and wakefulness, when the soul could roam free, are slipping into the shadows. The night is no longer a sacred time. It is now a time to be conquered, measured by clocks and filled with the sterile hum of industry. She stands at the window for a long while, her gaze fixed on the blackness outside. She can almost hear the world's heartbeat, slow, steady, ancient. But that rhythm is being drowned out, replaced by something mechanical, something relentless. The world is waking, and the stillness of the night is being stolen. The fire in the hearth dies to embers, and with it, the warmth that once held the night at bay. The room grows colder, the shadows deeper. The weight of history presses down on her as she moves back into the room, her footsteps soft against the stone floor. She pulls the blanket closer around her shoulders, but it does little to stave off the chill in the air. The silence in the castle is deafening now. Her thoughts drift, but always return to the same truth. The world is slipping away. The night that once held a special rhythm, a rhythm that allowed the soul to rest, to be free, is gone. The light has come, and with it, a death. In the distance, the first light of dawn begins to creep over the horizon, pale and insistent. The woman stares at the gray sky, watching as it slowly begins to shift from darkness to light. The night, that sacred time of sleep and stillness, is slipping from her grasp, never to return in the same way. The world she has known, the world where time and sleep were governed by the natural world, is disappearing, swept away by the light. She sits down at the edge of the bed, her hands resting in her lap, her thoughts heavy. What will remain, she wonders, when the night is no longer sacred? What will happen when sleep, once divided into two phases, is swallowed by the unrelenting pulse of the electric age? What will be lost in this transition? Will the world still know rest? Will the soul still have time to wander? The room is silent now, save for the crackle of the dying fire. She lies back, her body sinking into the rough woolen blanket. The dark night presses in, but it no longer feels the same. There is an emptiness, a hollowness to it, as if something essential has been lost. The moon, once a guiding light, is hidden from view, and the stars are obscured by the growing light in the sky. The night is fading, slipping away, and with it, the quiet rhythm of sleep that once connected the people of this world to the earth, to the heavens. She closes her eyes, but the weight of what is slipping away is too great. The shadows in the room seem to lengthen, stretching across the walls, clinging to her, reminding her of the past. The fire, once a comforting glow, is now a mere flicker, as if even it knows the end is near. She cannot help but wonder what will remain when the sacred rhythms are gone, when the darkness is no longer a place for the soul to roam. When sleep is no longer a refuge, but simply a pause between hours of wakefulness. The world outside begins to stir, the first hints of light creeping into the room. The change is here. The world will never be the same again. The night, that sacred silent companion, will be swallowed by the unblinking light of the future. The rhythm of sleep will no longer be governed by the earth, by the moon, by the seasons. It will be measured by machines, dictated by the clock. And with it, something precious will be lost. She opens her eyes, and the world outside is no longer a shadowed haven. The first light of day paints the room in harsh, unforgiving light. The soft, sacred silence is gone. She feels the weight of the change, the loss, settle deep within her chest. And as the first light of dawn creeps into the room, she wonders, as the shadows fade away, what happens when the night, the sacred space where we rest, is no longer ours to keep?